This universe is not just a stage. Every moment, every encounter, every emotion follows a law. We live within that flow, and now we begin to uncover its truth together. Welcome to the law of the universe, where your consciousness begins to awaken.
The true path of study. Enduring through hardship, many people begin the path of study with good intentions but soon find themselves distracted or discouraged. Often, this is because they attempt to study without first settling their hearts or resolving their circumstances. However, true study does not begin when life is comfortable, it begins precisely when life is difficult. At times, things may go well in the beginning. You earn money, support your children's education, and help those around you. But as time passes, responsibilities grow heavier, losses mount, and it becomes harder to manage everything. If you fail to organize these issues early, the situation may eventually become so burdensome that even the opportunity to study disappears. If you are unable to endure the losses or carry the weight alone, acknowledge your limitations. Write them down, face them honestly, and reorganize your life. Study must continue whether you are wealthy or poor, successful or struggling. It is not optional, it is essential. This principle applies not only to individuals but also to communal spaces, be it a study hall, a temple, or a spiritual center. At first, people gather in joy and curiosity. But with time, managing these relationships becomes complex. That is when a true guide must emerge, not someone who simply welcomes people, but one who understands why they came and what they need. A true mentor must go through 3 phases. First, comfort those who are struggling. Second, listen to them and guide them with insight. Finally, become someone who helps them grow and thrive. Imagine someone who opens a restaurant. At first, it's a success, customers come in droves. But the true test comes later, when those customers return with burdens and expectations. The owner must now provide not just food but also understanding and care. The same is true in any meaningful space. In the beginning, people are drawn by gifts or a sense of novelty. In the middle phase, they linger, hoping to learn. But in the final stage, they are waiting for true transformation. If you, as a leader or mentor, cannot offer that transformation, both you and your followers will fall into hardship. Many people today are suffering under debt, confusion, or burnout. But no matter how difficult your situation, if you stop chasing personal gain and instead return to the foundation of study, you will find support and renewal. Even governments and institutions respond to those who present sincere, thoughtful solutions. And when studying feels impossible due to poverty or isolation, remember, some of the greatest growth occurs under the harshest conditions. There are people who began their studies in complete darkness, living in remote mountains, enduring loneliness and pain, yet they matured and succeeded. When you embrace hardship with humility and say, "I am struggling because of my mistakes. Please forgive me," that is when the path begins to open. But if you approach life with cold calculation, trying to outsmart suffering, you will find yourself blocked at every turn. This is how true disciples must be trained. Do not fear hardship. Embrace it and learn from it. Even if life has placed you beneath a bridge, with nothing but a thin blanket, do your best to study and reflect there. That is where transformation begins. When you listen to teachings and feel tears well up, accept those tears as a gift. Let them awaken your sincerity. If you accept hardship and continue forward without resentment, you will never be abandoned. The universe, in its own time, will come to support you. Title: Why You Must Study, especially when life is hard. When life gets hard, when you're broke, lost, or emotionally drained, that's not the time to quit. It's the time to start studying. True study doesn't wait for comfort. It begins in discomfort. You may feel like everything's falling apart, but that's exactly when real transformation starts. There are 3 levels of growth. First, comfort others. Then, learn to listen deeply. Finally, help others rise. Even if you live under a bridge with nothing but a blanket, study. Reflect, grow. Say, "This pain is my responsibility." Then life will open a path for you. Don't run from struggle. Walk into it, with humility. And the universe will never abandon you. Why we must study, especially during hard times. Most people think they should study or improve themselves after life becomes easier. But true study begins when things are hard. When you're facing financial difficulties, emotional burdens, or personal setbacks, that's the very moment you must stop, reflect, and begin studying. If you wait until everything is perfect, you may lose the chance to grow altogether. It's not in comfort, but in hardship, that real transformation happens. No matter how difficult your situation is, you can still study. In fact, the harder it is, the more necessary it becomes. The 3 stages of growth. If you want to help others, you must first grow through 3 stages. First, become someone who can comfort others in need. Second, learn to listen and understand their struggles. Finally, become someone who can genuinely help and uplift others. Let's say you open a restaurant. At first, people come, and things go well. But as time passes, those same people come to you not just for food, but for advice, comfort, or support. You're no longer just serving meals. You're serving people's lives. This applies to any life path, whether you're running a center, leading a group, or simply living among others. The deeper your role becomes, the more you must study, understand people, and guide them. Don't let harsh conditions stop you. Even if you're poor, sick, or isolated, you must keep studying. Don't say, "I'll wait until things get better." Accept your situation and say, "This hardship is also something I created. I take responsibility." When you do that, the universe won't abandon you. You'll begin to see paths open. Sometimes, just hearing a teaching makes you cry. That's not weakness, it's your heart opening. Welcome those tears. They mean you're changing. No matter how harsh life becomes, if you stay sincere and keep walking the path, the world will support you in ways you can't yet imagine. Key takeaway: study isn't something you do after life gets easier, it's something you must do because life is hard. Real growth happens when you take responsibility for your situation, not when you blame others or wait. Helping others requires first becoming someone who has grown through difficulty. Tears, pain, and struggle are signs that your heart is opening. Don't avoid them, accept them. This is the story based on the above articles. Title: The library under the bridge. It was the middle of winter. Beneath a cold bridge along the Han River, a torn tent flapped in the wind. Inside sat a man wrapped in a thin blanket. His name was Minho. Not long ago, he had been a planning director at a mid-sized company with dozens of employees under him. But after a co-worker's corruption scandal swept through the organization, everything crumbled: his job, his reputation, his entire life. His home was sold off in a foreclosure. His wife and daughter returned to her parents' house. Friends stopped calling. With nowhere left to go, Minho descended to the bridge. At first, he wanted to die. How could life fall apart so quickly, so completely? No matter how many times he replayed it in his mind, he couldn't make sense of it. But even death, he realized, requires strength. After days of hunger and cold, Minho found that just staying alive was harder than dying. One day, he found a book discarded near a trash can in the park. "Study is the Path to Life," read the title. The cover was torn and the pages yellowed, but Minho took it back to his tent like treasure. The first line hit him like a jolt. Study doesn't begin when life is easy. It begins when everything falls apart. From that day on, Minho read. The next day, he found a worn-out magazine. Later, an old box with quotes scribbled on it. Before long, scavenging for books became his daily routine. He began building a tiny library under the bridge, weathered books stacked on wooden planks, scribbled notes on torn envelopes. Though his fingers were cold, his heart began to warm. One afternoon, a local welfare worker spotted him and asked, "What are you doing here?" Minho smiled. "Studying. I'm relearning how to live." The worker was puzzled but saw something sincere in his eyes. From then on, the worker began dropping off a bundle of used books once a week. Months passed. Minho's eyes grew deeper. Other homeless people started gathering near his tent. They listened when he spoke. They began to share their own stories. Minho listened. He read with them. He discussed what he'd learned. "Why should people like us even bother studying?" one man asked. Minho replied gently, "We've lost a lot. But our pain teaches us something. That's where true study begins. It's not about jobs or status, it's about preparing your heart to live again. One day, a woman volunteering at the welfare center approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Minho? I once gave a talk at my company." She had been a junior staff member at a firm where Minho once lectured. Now she was a mid-level manager. Minho laughed sheepishly. She held back tears. Eventually, she helped arrange a small talk for him at the community center, titled, "The Path to Restoration." "I have nothing now," Minho told the audience. "But I've learned something under this bridge. Hardship is not the end, it's the beginning." True learning starts the moment you have nothing left. People wept. Some reflected on their own lives. Minho began writing again. A small publisher agreed to release his collection of essays, The Library Under the Bridge. Today, he isn't wealthy, but he lives with a new sense of dignity. He believes in himself again. And more than that, he's become someone who helps others believe in themselves. "Heaven never abandoned me," Minho says. "When I truly embraced the lowest point of my life, that very ground became the foundation to rise again." Now, every morning, he sits quietly on a rooftop bench at the community center, flipping through a second-hand book, eyes bright with purpose.